what happens to your brain when you quit sugar for 30 days. Have you ever wondered if something as simple as removing sugar could completely reshape the way you think, feel, and live? Most people assume sugar is just a sweet treat, harmless in small amounts, but the truth is it acts more like a drug than a food. Each bite lights up the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine, making you feel good for a moment, and then leaving you crashing, foggy, and craving more. The cycle traps millions of people every single day. But what if you broke free? Sugar hijacks the brain's reward system, making it crave more and more because it taps into the same pathways that addictive substance use. When you eat something sweet, your brain responds instantly by releasing dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked with pleasure and reward. That surge of dopamine makes you feel good, even euphoric for a moment, and your brain remembers it. The next time you feel stressed, tired, or even bored, the brain pushes you toward sugar again because it knows it can give you that temporary lift. This creates a cycle of craving, consumption, and reward, and before long, the brain starts to depend on sugar for pleasure rather than seeking balance from natural sources. The problem is that over time, the brain becomes less sensitive to sugar's effects. Just like with drugs or alcohol, tolerance builds. That means the same cookie, soda, or candy bar that once gave you a rush no longer delivers the same satisfaction. So you need more sugar to get the same feeling. This cycle of increasing consumption is why sugar feels so hard to quit. It literally rewires the brain to demand higher amounts. Studies using brain imaging have shown that the areas activated by sugar are the same ones triggered by cocaine or nicotine. That's why it's not just about willpower, it's about biology. Meanwhile, as the brain becomes hooked, the body pays the price. Each sugar hit causes a spike in blood glucose, followed by a sharp crash as insulin rushes in to clear the excess. These highs and lows affect mood, focus, and energy, making you feel tired, irritable, and mentally foggy. Yet instead of recognizing the crash as sugar withdrawal, the brain interprets it as a signal to eat more sugar to feel good again. This vicious loop creates constant cravings and makes it incredibly difficult to break free. The reward system that sugar manipulates was never designed for processed foods. It was designed to encourage survival behaviors like eating natural fruits, bonding with others, and achieving goals. But today's refined sugars and artificial sweeteners overwhelm this system with levels of sweetness far beyond anything found in nature. As a result, the brain becomes overstimulated and unable to regulate itself properly. This not only fuels overeating, but also reduces motivation to pursue healthier sources of reward like exercise, learning, or meaningful relationships. The most dangerous part of sugar's hijacking is that it makes people believe they are choosing freely when in reality, their brain chemistry is driving the decision. Cravings feel urgent and giving in feels like relief, but it's simply the brain chasing another dopamine hit. Over time, this damages not only physical health, but also mental resilience, making it harder to focus, control impulses, and maintain emotional balance. Breaking free requires more than cutting calories. It requires rewiring the brain's reward system back to its natural state. By removing sugar and replacing it with whole, nutrient-rich foods, the brain slowly resets. Dopamine receptors become sensitive again, and pleasure returns to normal activities. What once felt like an impossible craving fades, replaced by a new sense of control and freedom. Within days of quitting sugar, dopamine and serotonin begin to rebalance, and the brain slowly starts to return to its natural rhythm. Sugar creates a constant flood of dopamine in the brain's reward system, which over time dulls the sensitivity of dopamine receptors. This means that the more sugar you eat, the less responsive your brain becomes and the more it demands just to feel normal. When sugar is removed, the brain initially panics, cravings feel stronger, irritability increases, and energy seems to crash because the dopamine pathway is no longer being artificially triggered. But this period is short lived. Within just a few days, the absence of sugar's overstimulation allows dopamine receptors to begin resetting. The brain slowly becomes more sensitive again, and everyday pleasures such as walking, reading, or listening to music start to feel more rewarding than before. At the same time, serotonin, the neurotransmitter responsible for mood, calmness, and sleep, also begins to stabilize. Sugar manipulates serotonin indirectly by creating rapid spikes and crashes in blood sugar. When glucose levels plummet after a sugar high, serotonin production drops too, leaving people moody, anxious, or even depressed. This is why many reach for sweets as comfort food, not realizing that sugar itself is causing the roller coaster of emotions. When sugar is eliminated, blood sugar levels become steadier, which allows serotonin levels to remain more consistent. As a result, mood swings ease, anxiety begins to calm, and emotional resilience improves. The changes are not just chemical, they are also psychological. When sugar no longer controls dopamine and serotonin, you feel less like a prisoner to cravings. Instead of being driven by the need for your next sweet fix, you start to notice real hunger cues and satisfaction from wholesome foods. Fruits taste sweeter, flavors feel richer, and the brain begins to reward you naturally for eating nutrient dense meals. This shift doesn't take months or years. It can begin within the first week of quitting sugar, showing just how adaptable the brain truly is. Another important effect of rebalancing dopamine and serotonin is improved sleep. Sugar disrupts natural circadian rhythms by causing late energy surges or crashes, which interfere with melatonin and serotonin's role in restful sleep. Once sugar is removed, these neurotransmitters work more harmoniously and deeper, more restorative sleep returns. Within days, many people report waking up with more energy and a clearer mind, simply because their brain is no longer stuck in the sugar driven cycle of highs and lows. The body also benefits from this neurochemical reset. Balanced serotonin reduces stress hormone activity, calming the nervous system, while normalized dopamine improves motivation, focus, and decision making. Instead of chasing sugar to feel alive, the brain regains the ability to find joy and satisfaction in life itself. In just a few days without sugar, the brain proves its incredible resilience. By stepping away from the chemical trap of dopamine spikes and serotonin crashes, you give your mind a chance to heal. The result is greater balance, sharper focus, calmer emotions, and the beginning of true freedom from addiction. After the first week, mental clarity improves as brain fog begins to lift. And this shift can feel like waking up from a haze you didn't even realize you were living in. For people who have consumed sugar regularly, the constant cycle of spikes and crashes in blood glucose leaves the brain struggling to operate at its best. High sugar intake floods the bloodstream with glucose, forcing the pancreas to release insulin to bring levels down. Once that crash happens, the brain is left with less fuel than it needs, and the result is foggy thinking, poor focus, irritability, and fatigue. This cycle can repeat multiple times a day, leaving you trapped in a cloud of mental sluggishness. But after the first week without sugar, the body begins to stabilize blood sugar naturally, and the brain finally gets consistent, steady energy. As the fog lifts, the difference is noticeable. Tasks that once felt overwhelming or exhausting suddenly seem manageable. Concentration becomes sharper, and the ability to process information speeds up. It is not just about more energy, it is about the quality of that energy. Without sugar dragging down neurotransmitters, the brain is able to fire more effectively, creating smoother communication between neurons. This means clearer memory recall, better problem solving skills, and a sharper sense of awareness throughout the day. Part of this improvement comes from reduced inflammation in the brain. Sugar is known to cause oxidative stress and inflammation, which interfere with how neurons connect and communicate. Inflammation slows everything down, creating the sensation of brain fog. Once sugar is removed, inflammation begins to decrease, blood flow improves, and oxygen delivery to the brain increases. This physiological healing directly translates into mental clarity as your brain cells can finally perform without interference. Another reason mental clarity improves after the first week is the stabilization of hormones that affect cognition. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is heavily influenced by blood sugar swings. When sugar is a regular part of your diet, cortisol levels are often elevated, keeping the body in a state of stress that clouds thinking and reduces focus. Removing sugar allows cortisol to balance, reducing stress on the brain and nervous system. With less stress and steadier blood sugar, the brain is calmer and more capable of sustained attention. People often describe this change as a veil lifting. The constant need for sugar is replaced with a steady sense of presence and alertness. You no longer spend mental energy battling cravings or dealing with the aftermath of sugar crashes. Instead, the brain is freed to direct focus where it matters on work, creativity, relationships, or personal goals. Even mood improves because when the mind is clear, motivation and positivity naturally rise. After just a week, the changes may feel small at first, but they build rapidly. Each day without sugar compounds the benefits, and clarity continues to strengthen. It is the beginning of realizing how powerful the brain becomes when it is fueled by stability rather than chaos. The fog doesn't just lift, it disappears, revealing the sharper, stronger mind that was always waiting underneath. After 30 days, memory focus and emotional resilience become noticeably stronger because the brain has had enough time to adapt to life without the constant roller coaster of sugar spikes and crashes. For decades, many people live with the belief that foggy thinking, forgetfulness, or mood swings are just part of life. In reality, much of it is tied to the way sugar disrupts neurotransmitters, inflames the brain, and exhausts energy systems. 30 days without sugar provides the body and brain a chance to reset, and the transformation becomes hard to ignore. Memory improves because the brain is no longer under siege from inflammation and oxidative stress caused by high sugar intake. These two factors damage neurons and interfere with synaptic connections, making it harder for the brain to process and recall information. By removing sugar, inflammation decreases and neurons communicate more efficiently. Blood flow to the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain, improves, and you begin to notice sharper recall, remembering names, details, or tasks that previously slipped away. Focus also becomes stronger. In the sugar-driven cycle, concentration is broken by crashes in blood glucose and sudden cravings that demand attention. After 30 days, your brain is no longer distracted by these fluctuations. Stable energy means longer periods of deep work, better problem solving, and greater productivity. Many describe this as an ability to lock in on tasks without the background noise of constant hunger or restlessness. The clarity that began in the first week deepens, becoming a steady foundation for thinking and decision making. Emotional resilience grows in parallel with these cognitive improvements. Sugar has a profound effect on mood because of how it manipulates serotonin and dopamine. Constant sugar highs and lows create a cycle of euphoria, irritability, and depression. After 30 days without sugar, these neurotransmitters stabilize, leading to more consistent emotions. Anxiety lessens, mood swings even out, and small stresses are easier to handle without feeling overwhelmed. This emotional balance creates a sense of inner strength, a kind of resilience that allows you to bounce back from challenges more quickly. Another overlooked aspect of this transformation is confidence. Quitting sugar for 30 days proves to yourself that discipline is possible, and this belief spills into other areas of life. That confidence reinforces resilience, making you less likely to be derailed by cravings, setbacks, or external pressures. The longer the brain is free from sugar's hijacking, the more natural this strength feels. By the end of a month, the combination of sharper memory, stronger focus, and steadier emotions begins to redefine how you experience daily life. Tasks that once drained you become easier. Interactions feel smoother because your mood is more balanced. You no longer feel trapped by cravings or fatigue, but instead empowered by clarity and calm. The first 30 days without sugar are more than just a diet change. They mark the beginning of a mental and emotional reset that can alter the course of your health and your future. Quitting sugar trains the brain for long term discipline, reshaping habits and vitality because it forces a powerful rewiring of the brain's reward system. Sugar is not just a sweet indulgence, it is an addictive substance that manipulates dopamine pathways, making the brain crave more of it for temporary pleasure. Each sugary snack reinforces a loop of craving, indulgence, and crash, leaving the brain conditioned to seek quick fixes rather than long term rewards. When sugar is removed, the brain goes through withdrawal, and the absence of those dopamine surges feels uncomfortable at first. But over time, as days turn into weeks, the brain begins to adapt, creating new neural pathways that respond to healthier forms of reward. This process strengthens the ability to delay gratification, a cornerstone of discipline. As the cravings fade, what grows in their place is self control. The daily practice of resisting sugar builds resilience that extends beyond food choices. You start to notice that the same strength you use to say no to sweets empowers you to wake up earlier, stick to workouts, and focus on meaningful goals. Each small victory compounds, reshaping the brain's wiring toward discipline and consistency. The act of overcoming sugar addiction becomes training for life itself, teaching the brain that it is capable of mastering impulses and directing energy toward long term vitality. Another way quitting sugar fuels discipline is by stabilizing energy and emotions. When blood sugar is constantly spiking and crashing, the brain struggles to maintain focus or emotional balance, making it harder to stick to good habits. After sugar is eliminated, energy becomes steady and moods more stable. This balance creates the perfect environment for discipline to thrive because you are no longer fighting fatigue, irritability, or anxiety caused by sugar swings. Instead, you have the clarity and strength to follow through on healthier routines without constant internal battles. Over weeks and months, this discipline reshapes habits at a deeper level. Food choices shift naturally toward whole, nutrient dense options, not because of willpower alone, but because the brain has learned to enjoy and crave them. The taste buds adapt, making natural sweetness from fruits more satisfying, while processed desserts lose their appeal. This shift reinforces itself. Healthy foods create more stable energy, which supports clearer thinking, which in turn supports more disciplined decisions. The cycle of damage and craving is replaced with a cycle of healing and vitality. Transformation goes beyond the physical. Quitting sugar cultivates a mindset of empowerment. Each day without it is proof that you are not controlled by cravings or external temptations. This sense of mastery strengthens self identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who chooses health, who has the power to direct their own future. That mental shift becomes the foundation for long term vitality. Ultimately, quitting sugar is not just about removing something harmful. It is about training the brain to operate at a higher level. It teaches resilience, discipline, and clarity while building habits that fuel energy, protect health, and enhance quality of life. The sweetness you gain from freedom, vitality, and strength far outweighs anything sugar ever gave.